My name is Africa Kiiza. I am a trade policy analyst with the Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute, or SEATINI in short, SEATINI Uganda. SEATINI is a pan-African NGO, civil society organization that works on strengthening Africa in world trade through ensuring that trade, fiscal, and investment-related policies and practices for people and promote social justice. It is in that line of thinking and in that subscription that SEATINI subscribes to the alternative report on Africa, or what many call the AROA report, because the AROA report seeks to develop and promote a new development narrative, an alternative narrative for Africa's development that is enshrined in social justice, inclusive development, and promotion of people-centered development policy and practice. So that is how SEATINI's work, SEATINI's ideological orientation, and AROA, or the alternative report on Africa, how they relate to each other. And that is why SEATINI was part of the team that engaged and still fully subscribes in spirit and in work on the AROA report. Yes, thank you so much. The alternative report on Africa represents a new hybrid, a new quest of Africa's narrative, Africa's story on development. Of recent, since independence, Africa's development has been, both policy and practice, has been often laden and informed by research and the agenda of neoliberalism that is predetermined, largely has been predetermined by the global powers, the former colonialists, but also countries like the global north, North America, and the EU. And this narrative, unfortunately, has not supported Africa in development. Inequalities have been on the rise. Africa's trade deficit has been on the rise. Africa's vulnerabilities, debt has been unsustainable, and yet Africa is a rich continent. But the question, this whole narrative of Africa is a rich continent with the resources, with the youngest population in the next 50 years, and yet it is underdeveloped. There has always been that acknowledgement. However, the proposals, the solutions to addressing the systemic development challenges for Africa have not been successful because we keep nibbling at the current predominant neoliberal paradigm. So the AROA report comes to challenge this paradigm, to show how and why it has failed to work in addressing Africa's structural transformation, and then proposes alternatives. These are more of workable solutions and which we feel are feasible, that if we were to put them into action, then we would not only achieve the Agenda 2063, which is the Africa that we want, but we would also have Africa which is telling its own story the way it should be told, not the way that the Western world sees Africa as. Yes, that's an interesting question. Africa's economy after the pandemic has actually become worse. Okay, it has become worse, but also it provides some hope. Why I'm saying that it has become worse is because currently it is still, Africa is still in a situation where it has inherited an imperialistic, capitalistic-led development structure, development narrative system, where you find that actually, because of the measures to mitigate the pandemic, the spread of the pandemic, the COVID-19 virus, businesses got out, small businesses got out of business, debt increased, vulnerabilities increased, and also the virus in terms of access to social services like care and education have become more challenging. This is because Africa has been following a model where social services are commodified. They are in the marketplace. Health is in the marketplace. We have higher user fees in the hospitals. We have higher fees when it comes to cost of doing business. And this has really unraveled the fact that COVID-19 has unraveled the fact that Africa's economy cannot grow. We cannot have an inclusive economy unless we change the narrative, the ideology, and the development model which is informing our development, our quest for development. So the pandemic has not only brought out the ugly side of the, this was always known, but the pandemic has helped to ignite a spark that African countries are now thinking, African economies have realized that no, it's high time they rework on their development. It's high time they search for alternatives because the current development model has failed them not only to prepare themselves in terms of fighting against the pandemics, but also in other long systemic issues that have been challenging Africa, like disease, hunger and famine, inequalities, poverty, name it. So currently the pandemic has, yes, it has affected Africa, our debt levels have increased, but again, it has given us hope, which I think is the major critical point of focus, that it has given us hope, and we have realized that countries are now in pursuit of alternative development models, state-led models, and people-centered development models in order to respond not only to the pandemic, but also in issues that are going to look at Africa's structural transformation quest. Oh yes, we had a chance of working with Mr. Sheikh on the development of the alternative report on Africa, and our contribution was through using East African perspective, experiences from East Africa, development experiences from East Africa. We are looking at the quest for sovereignty of Africa. How can Africa, what have been the challenges that Africa has been facing in the quest for her economic, social, and political sovereignty in the global system? And we're looking at what policies have facilitated this quest or have frustrated this quest. And we are using experiences from East Africa. So our contribution, we talk about issues, for example, of the historical quest for Africa's economic community under the Abuja Treaty, under the Lagos Plan of Action to the African Continental Free Trade Area. And the report finds out that to date, even though Africa has put in place policies and measures to gain her independence from the flag independence that we still see and celebrate, it has failed to attain that quest. Africa has failed to win herself off the global powers, of the exploitative relationship with its former colonies and new imperialists, because it has failed to look at the alternative development policies. And that has been our major finding, that we are still, even at policies that are nationally determined, they are still ingrained and reinforcing the inequalities, they are still reinforcing the liberalization, free trade and free markets, open markets, which actually exacerbates the development challenges that are facing Africa. Then the second issue we look at is in the report is the issue of minerals, how minerals can play a big role in the development and financing of Africa's development, apart from the public-private partnerships. And we find out that the African Mining Vision, though a good document, has largely not been implemented, and Africa remains the supplier of raw minerals. In the mining value chains, Africa is still trapped at the lower end. And we argue that the only way that Africa can finance her alternative development path is through generating resources domestically, not by increasing on the tax burden, but by looking at alternative sources of financing like taxing the mining sector, enrichment of the minerals within Africa to trap the value so that the value can stay in Africa, and most importantly, plugging the leaks of illicit financial forces like illegal fishing, illegal mining, illegal logging, and all that. So that's another issue. And then lastly, we talk about the role of technology, ICT, in the quest of an alternative path for Africa. In this report, we note that even though we are in the fourth industrial revolution of artificial intelligence, Africa is still a latecomer when it comes to industrialization and is still having challenges with digitalization and artificial intelligence. And we note that Africa risks to be trapped as a consumer of digital products, as a consumer of the digital trade platforms. And we note with concern and propose that in order to avert this situation, because we realize that we make a revelation that the fourth industrial revolution is coming at a time where the winner takes it all principle and model of development is in play. And we caution that Africa should avert this. And the only way that Africa should avert this is to ensure that the current rules that are being proposed to govern digitalization, to govern the digital economy or the fourth industrial revolution, are made in a way that they promote technology transfer, build capacities for Africans, support the growth of African digital platforms, local platforms, and largely connect the people in terms of upgrading their digital skills to be able to be relevant in the digital economy. So in principle, in general terms, that is what the alternative report on Africa looks at from our part, but we all use that, we all give our views from an East African perspective, based on our experiences and our work over the years in East African community.